Good morning, everybody. It's nice we can be together. So the last name we hear in this reading is Vasudev. Everything is Vasudev. The Gita says it's rare to find a wise man saying all is Vasudev. That is also a sound, that name. And when I say this name, Vasudev, Vasudeva, always moves something in my heart. There is a nice story which I heard from Shivani about Ananda Mahima, the great woman saint, permeated by joy, Yogananda said, whom he visited. And he tells it about in Autobiography of a Yogi. So Yogananda was with her, and Swami was with her, and Swami had a deep relationship with her. And they used to sing the mantra Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya, which is a very important mantra on the path of Kriya Yoga. I used to chant it, and maybe some devotees who are chanting this mantra in Ananda Mahima's ashram, maybe with some rajasic energy, not very carefully. So Swami told Ananda Mahima that that mantra was central in Kriya Yoga. So Ananda Mahima says, in that case, we won't chant it anymore. Because, she said so, because it was so important that she understood it has to be used only inwardly. Swami himself wrote a melody that says, Om, where you chant this mantra. And I remember once, I think I was in Russia with Shivani, I was leading a kirtan, I was chanting this, and it became too rhythmic, too outwards. At the end, Shivani shared that Swami didn't like this kind of rhythm for this mantra. It's true that in Ananda we are all very full of joy, cheerful. But for Swami, this mantra was more to be used inwardly. Years ago, with other devotees, I produced, for a fundraising, a CD called Ananda Gita. And I think also there I was the one who chanted that mantra really sweetly and then more rhythmically and more. So I'm not accusing anybody. So let's go to the topic of this reading of today. And let's go back to Ananda Mahima. She said to children something really interesting. She said, be good, but not too good. And this is important because a child needs to run, needs to cry and shout freely. Otherwise, that wouldn't be a child. Even in Autobiography of a Yogi, we find many examples of how Yogananda expressed intense emotions. He cried, for example, when he lost his mother or panic. when after many years, all of a sudden, Sri Yukteswar told him, "Are you prepared for your final college exams?" And Sri Yukteswar knew that Yogananda probably went to university twice a year. So Yogananda said, "Oh Lord, no, I'm not ready. I cannot do my exams." So emotions make our lives full of richness. They belong to our outward personality. Within us, we need to look for inner peace. We have to try to calm these emotions. So let's try to find a space in our heart where, even when we have intense emotions, we can go back immediately. In fact, at the end of a day, we have to sleep because we are tired. So we have to learn when life is very intense or difficult, at will, to go back deep in our center, in the heart. Being a moralist on the spiritual path is not something imposed outwardly. It's not something we can impose on ourselves. To live correctly the spiritual path, we have to be natural. Of course, we have to make efforts. But when Swami Kriyananda gave the basic attitudes of the spiritual path called yamas and niyamas, they can be pretty hard. So non-sensuality, do not desire what is yours or of others, don't be attached to your things, never lie. So if you take them as something imposed on yourself, then you easily develop a false spiritual identity. And instead of growing, that will slow down our spiritual growth. In fact, our spirituality is our truest part. Swami Kriyananda as well, in his books, explains these concepts. And he says that these yamas and niyamas, these suggestions, are there to help us to be more in tune with our highest self, with our spirit. In the book Raja Yoga, Swami explains that also the yoga postures are natural because they are an expression of energy we have inside. So you don't have to make efforts to make a yoga posture. Instead, you have to relax in that posture. I remember that at the beginning I was enthusiastic of yoga, that I pulled and pulled, I stretched, and I almost broke my knee, and for 1 year I was stumbling. So that is not yoga. I was trying to impose something on my body instead of developing it. So the spiritual path is very anti-conformist. When you start working seriously on the spiritual path, you will see that some of your friends, while you go on the spiritual path, won't understand you. But you have to be ready to go on, even by yourself, because you have found something so true in yourself. So remember, be good, but not so good, as this woman saint said. It means be natural on your spiritual path. Accept what you really are, as Swami says in this reading. The second principle of spirituality is that you need a lot of energy. I wanted to share two stories with you. One is about the writer of the Ramayana called Valmiki. I found out that Valmiki means ant nest. And why that happened? Why that peculiar name on a... who wrote the Ramayana? Oh, it was Mr. Ant Nest. So he used to have a different name, and he was just a householder. He had a wife, children. During he was in economic difficulty, but he has a lot of energy and a lot of courage. So he found another way to find money. He started stealing money from others with the weapons. He stole money from people, and he brought home money and food and whatever was needed. So you need a lot of energy to do something like that. I remember when I was a child, very often I didn't like to do heavy things. And other friends of mine had the courage to do even bad things, and those really scared me. I remember the 11th of September when they attacked the Twin Towers. Many Americans, since they were so wounded, they said these people are really have lack of courage doing that. I remember a famous writer at the time, a woman writer, she says, no, it is not lack of courage to do what they did. They needed a lot of courage because they sacrificed their lives as well. Maybe they are crazy, but not. But they did have courage. So, Valmiki, let's go back to Valmiki. He learned a very important lesson. One day, he tried to rob someone in the forest, and that man was a saint. Valmiki didn't realize that. So this saint gave him his belongings, money, a little food. Are you happy with it now? The saint said. And Valmiki said yes. So I want to ask you something, said the saint. Okay, you earn your money in this way. Do you think your wife and children will be happy to share not only what you bring home, but also the bad karma you are creating for yourself? And Valmiki said, I never thought of it. Maybe, I think so. Yes, I am my wife and my children for sure. And the saint said, go and check with them. So Valmiki went home. He asked, seriously, his wife and children, I have to tell you how I am earning the money I bring home. Oh, no, we don't want to know anything about that. Oh, no, we don't want to know. I'm stealing for you. Will you share this bad karma I'm creating? Of course we are not. This is your karma. So Valmiki in that moment learned a very important lesson. So he understood that saint he met in the forest was really a wise man. So he went there and allowed this saint to be disciplined. And he did that with the same courage he had while robbing people. And he started meditating, but with such fervor and perseverance that slowly ants came close to him and created their nest all around him. But he remained sitting, meditating, who knows for how long, maybe months. Meanwhile, he was surrounded by thousands, millions of ants. So he was an incredible devotee. So he used the same energy toward his bad job. He used the same energy to purify himself. Another example, which is more recent, is about a violinist, a famous one. They called him the Emperor of Violinists. You can go on YouTube and you can listen to him. Even though the recordings are old, because he used to play in the 30s. His name was Jascha Heifetz. In the sound, in his ability to play, in the power he had in expressing music, you can perceive he had a rare gift. And it's not something common on earth. Maybe you can find such a player one every 100 years. He was able to offer such a artistic perfection that is really seldom heard. He was also a teacher, especially at the end of his life. He had one of his students. One day, this student loses his father, and his family asked the student to take care of the family business. Now the father was no longer there, and the student needed to manage it. But this student understood, well, if I become a manager, I won't be able to study my violin anymore. And I'm studying with an incredible great violinist. So he decided to test himself. So he studied a very difficult piece of music for weeks. And then he went to his teacher. And he played and played. And the teacher looked at him. This famous violinist had no expression in his face. He expressed all his power, beauty through the heart. Anyway, this student played and played. At the end, he looked at Jascha Heifetz, his master, and he asked, well, master, what do you say? Jascha Heifetz said, fire is missing. Fire is missing. Fire is missing. Then this student said, okay, I didn't pass my exam. And he started taking care of his family. He put his violin aside. He spent a nice life. The business went well. His pocket was full of money. He earned money for the family. 10 years later, Jascha Heifetz is on a trip and goes to his city for a concert, and of course the student goes there, meets him after the concert. Master Heifetz, I'm so happy to see you. And he said, oh, I haven't seen you for 10 years. What have you been doing? Well, I don't play the violin anymore. I had to take care of my business, family business. Why aren't you playing? It was wonderful listening to you. But master, you told me I didn't have enough fire. And Heifetz thought and said, well, it meant I was right, because if you had enough fire, you wouldn't listen to my words. You would have gone on studying the violin. It's hard. So sometimes it's very hard, but also very clear. Life shows us what we need, the great energy we need to achieve great results. We all have this energy. It is hidden right behind our ego. And we are all trying to awaken this ego. So when we work on our spiritual growth, we have to understand that the perfection about which Jesus spoke, be thou perfect as your Father that is in heaven, can never be something of the ego. We can become neurotics about also our spiritual practices. Well, today I just did 24 kriyas, and we can become nervous or guilty. Or maybe I did only half an hour of Hong So and I didn't chant today. I'm not a good devotee. So what will I do? This is the ego that tries to find perfection and starts creating a sort of a loop. So it creates this loop between creating a spiritual effort and be never satisfied with it. So the ego will be never satisfied because satisfaction belongs to the soul. So your spiritual effort will never be enough. So you're not up to it. You're not perfect. You're not a good disciple. And you can go on and on in this loop of the ego trying to be perfect. And it's better, of course, to avoid it. They say that the autism is a dysfunction, psychological dysfunction. But till we haven't found God, we are all autistic. Because the ego always refers to itself. And this is also the definition of autism. But we are trying to come out of it. So what can we do? First of all, there are a few strategies. In the book of Swami Kriyananda called Sadhu Beware, which is a wonderful book, and there is also another book about the new renunciant order, Swami speaks about strategies and he explains how to bypass or transcend the ego or forget the ego. So these two books are wonderful. And that is a joyful work. You're not repressing or pushing down anything. Because when you take a spiritual practice and you do that for a few days, you feel that something good is growing in you. So it's a joyful work. You're not punishing yourself. Something else that can help you us is not to speak about our spiritual growth, our seclusion, our inward experiences, spiritual experiences. Because the risk is that if you speak about these things with others, the ego starts affirming that you are doing these spiritual practices because you're part of a spiritual family, because it becomes part of a social life. Oh, today I meditated really well. I did 108 kriya. Look at this. Or I did such a beautiful seclusion. Now I understand what real seclusion is. it is as if you say you're speaking about something really private, personal. So the relationship with God is private and personal. So keep it like that. Don't waste your spirituality speaking about it. I'm not saying that you don't have to speak about it always, because sometimes it is necessary. Maybe when you are counseling or you're giving a lesson, you can speak about these things, but not daily. With our friends and dear ones, our friends and dear ones need to feel the fruits of our good meditations and seclusions. It means we will be more simple, more intuitive, happier, more full of joy. These are the fruits, and people will feel them. If you go on speaking about how much you meditate or not meditate, you also involve the ego of others, and they will say, okay, he meditates so long and I don't. So you involve their ego as well. And you will take also others far from the goal. I remember years ago, before internet, I received written letters from the village. And I remember one letter, it was a newsletter at the time. They said, don't speak about your spiritual experiences. You might have them, or maybe you can hear the sound of Om or the sounds of the chakras. But these experiences don't have a value in themselves. They have a value just if they change your life. If they change your heart permanently. It means that if you feel that through these experiences you are growing, it means that experience was a good one. But if you go around saying, oh, yesterday I had the vision of Master, of course it's the ego speaking. Sometimes I meet people, they speak about their intuitions, experiences, visions. And I feel that these things take away the energy from me. The same happens for our agenda. If we do karma yoga, in the highest sense, it means that you do what you have to do, and you do that with all your heart, and you forget about it. Because you have done it with God, with Master, with your love. If you start sharing your experiences with others, you will lose your power. If you say, well, I'm writing letters, I'm writing exams, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, and maybe I'm sharing this with someone who is not even interested in that, what happens? First of all, I lose my peace. What is important is that while performing my tasks, I feel the divine energy that offers me intuition, love. And after a day's work, it's important that I unplug, but that I feel replenished. So don't speak about your sadhanas. Don't speak about your experiences. Remain faithful that whatever you do, it's not you performing it. You're just doing it because you want to feel the joy within and the peace within yourself. Because, as I was saying, you might lose your peace very easily if you speak about this inner experiences. One last thing, let's go back to what Swami says at the beginning. So the Bhagavad Gita says, hard the wise Mahatma is to find the man who saith, all is Vasudev. It means that anyway we have to make the effort of perceiving Vasudev, of perceiving God behind everything. Within us, within others, and we have to do our best to serve others as a part of yourself. You are a part of Vasudev. The others are a part of Vasudev. When Yogananda went to visiting the levitating saint in Autobiography of a Yogi, this saint gave him a very interesting advice. The young Mukunda meditated a lot, and this saint told him, did you, I see you meditate a lot, but did you develop Anubhava, the love of God? So he was telling him, don't mix the technique with the goal. The techniques are there to help you become more free. So, but the true practice is to do your practice, Kriya Yoga or Karma Yoga or Hong So or energization exercises or chant. Do it with the unique goal of a feeling in your heart Vasudev, the love of God. And then it will be easy to find that love in all while you serve others. Everything is Vasudev. Thank you.